Hello and welcome everyone. My name is Jessica, and in this video I'm going to provide you with 6 tips that you should avoid doing as a game master. And hang on to the end because there will be a little bonus tip for you there. Now I only planned for this video to be between 12 and 14 minutes, but it did turn out to be a little longer, so let's get going. Tip number 1. Don't over prep, because there is no way that you can account for every possible action that your players can take. You would end up sitting with 30 pages of material, and that would just be, well, a waste of time, and you wouldn't even get to spend 5 of them. So instead of trying to prep for what the players are going to do, then you should prep what your NPCs are going to do. So let's take an example. We have a group of goblins who have found this old abandoned castle out in the forest, and they are raiding the nearby city. Their goal is simple: raid and plunder for valuables. They want to get gold and silver. The goal for the party is also very simple. They need to get rid of the goblins. Now the goblins, they're creatures of the night, so they will attack the city during the night. That means they will probably be in the castle during the day. But if the players, they travel to the castle in the night, well then when they return to the city, they'll find that the city is under attack, or maybe they'll find the city already ransacked. Now the goblins, they know that the players are after them, because when the goblins return to the castle, they'll find their remaining friends slaughtered. Let's go on with number 2. Don't underprep. Just like you don't want to sit with 30 pages of material, you don't want to sit with no pages of material. And all you need to prep is just like we did before. What I did prep before, that could be boiled down to 4 bullet points. Number 1, goal, goblins. Taking residency in a castle in the forest, raiding the city. Number 2, daytime. They spent the day in the castle doing goblin stuff. Number 3, nighttime. They're raiding the city during the night. Number 4, travel time. During the first few hours of the night, the goblins travel from the castle to the city. That can be on a sticker this size. So you don't have to sit with a stack of pages full of material, just stickers, that is enough. Number 3, don't be a player. It is very tempting when you have built a 25-room dungeon full of traps and encounters and monsters and puzzles and riddles, that you sit behind your GM screen thinking, oh man, if I were there, then I would do this and this, and I would shine like here, and I would solve this riddle, and I would beat this monster. But that's not your job. You have every other tool in the toolbox. So just, you have to leave the players that bold to play with all by themselves. You have Voldemort, you have Saruman, you have the Joker. Let the players be Batman, Gandalf, and Batman. I will, however, release a video later on which explains how you can create an NPC which follows the players along for an extended period of time. But that is not a video on how to become a player in your own game, because you shouldn't. You have all the tools in the toolbox at your disposal. You can create your own tools on the fly. Magical items, NPCs, character concepts, spells. You can do whatever you want. You can create your own monsters. Make them look however you want and give them whatever powers you would like to give them. but let the players shine with their ball. It is their job to solve your problems, or the problems that you've created for them. Number 4. Don't allow too much source material. More than a few times I've had game masters ask me for help. They would come to me and say, Jessica, how can I deal with this character? It's just simply too strong. It can do too much. It overshines the other players in their characters. And then I ask, what character does your player play? And then when I look at that character, I'll see a wizard or a fighter or a multi-class with 2 or 3 different classes and spells and subclasses and abilities taken from all over the place. 4 different books and 1 Earth Arcana, all in the same character. And then I tell them that there are 2 culprits to get overpowered characters in your game. Number 1, that is multiclassing. As soon as you allow multiclassing, you risk getting ridiculous overpowered characters. Because multiclassing, well, if you don't have the ability to multiclass, it is very, very hard to make a character which will actually break the game. And we're not talking level 15 and above, because every character in that level range is bungus. Culprit number 2, that is allowing too much source material, because the more options your players got, the bigger the chance there is that you get an overpowered character that you can't control. And once the character reaches the point where you can't control it, it's too late. All you then can do is talk to your player, tell him what the problem is. Hopefully that player will be understanding, but if he isn't, well, then there's really only one option. You have to take that character's choice away, and more often than not, that means killing that character off. If you think this has been of any help so far, then please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more videos on how to improve as a game master. Number 5. Do not say no. That does relate a little bit to number 4, but it's a little bit different, because do not say no. This is a problem I mainly encounter when talking to new GMs who plays with more experienced players than themselves. I have also tried this both as a new GM and as the experienced player. When I was a new GM, I had a group who had years of experience, and they took advantage of it. I also did it once when I was an experienced player and I had a complete new GM. The game, it was a great game, but it ended very badly because the game wasn't about the characters of the players, but it was about me and my character. I was the main role. The GM was my sidekick, and the other players, they were they were like secondary characters. And that's, well, not fun. I don't know why this happens, but I think that it's probably because the new GM will have either too much confidence that this experienced player knows best, or he might be a little bit intimidated by the experience of the player. But you should not be afraid of saying no, because you don't want to end up with a scenario like this where the player comes and asks the new GM, can I play a fighter? And the GM says, sure. And then he asks, can I play a dragonborn fighter? Sure, why not? Can my mother be a full-blooded black dragon great worm? Sure, why the hell not? Because all of a sudden you'll end up with a dragonborn fighter with wings, with the ability to deal 66 points of radiant damage with his breath weapon, with a dragon for a mother and an angel for a father, and a warble great sword in level 2. You don't want that. So learn how to say no. And number 6. Don't start a game that you don't have the time for. And what I mean by that is that I have experienced quite a few times that my game master has decided to start a new game. He's hyped it up. Every player has been so excited to play his game, created intricate backstories, and then after 4 or 5 sessions the game master tells us that he doesn't have the time to actually run the game, and then it died. So how do you prep for that? How do you avoid getting caught off guard? Well, there are a few tips for that. Well, first off, you need to plan ahead. You need to look at yourself and ask, where will I be in 1 month, in 3 months, in 6 months, in a year? If you can't plan a year ahead, don't start a 2-year long campaign, or don't start a campaign which you expect to last 2 years. If it lasts 2 years, well, that's great, but maybe just have a goal which says 6 months, because you don't want to start a 2-year long campaign if you know that in 2 months you're going to study on the university and you need to get a spare job, and then all of a sudden you have to stop your campaign after 5 sessions. And there are 2 things to this which will help you decide what type of campaign you're going to run. Number 1, how often do you want to play? Do you want to play weekly, every other week, once a month? Do you want to play in the weekends? So when you know that, then you can ask yourself the next question. How much prep time do you need to run the game? I call that PPR, which stands for Prep Play Ratio. And that means for every hour you spend prepping your game, you get a certain amount of material, or a certain amount of playtime out of that prep time. So if you spend 1 hour prepping, how much playtime do you get from that hour? Personally, I get about 3 hours of playtime for every 1 hour of prep time. So I have a PPR of 3. Maybe you will have one of 5 or only 2. You also need to find out whether you want to prep on a session to session basis, like I do most of the time, or if you want to what I call batch prep, which is if you play every Wednesday 3 hours, well, then you can either decide to prep 1 hour between each session, or you could maybe choose to spend 1 day where you spend 4 hours prepping, and then you have prepped for 4 sessions. Whatever is your schedule. So I promised you a bonus tip in the end. It is not just a bonus tip, it is also a rant. Because I've encountered quite a few game masters who gives GM tips to others, both on YouTube and on Reddit, where the one giving the tip says something along the lines that you should tailor your game to your players. And I partially agree on that. Sure, you should tailor your game. But then they follow it up and say, if your players are happy, then you are happy. And that you should create your game only to your players. And that is, in my opinion, directly detrimental. Because if you as a new GM get that tip, you will automatically trust it most of the time, because you get it from an experienced GM, which has been a GM for maybe 20 years. And if he says that you have to run your game like that, then you will try and do it. And I think it's wrong. I tried to do that. I asked my players exactly what they want to play, and they told me that they wanted to play an Orcish warband. I also knew that my players, they enjoyed political intrigues, like Game of Thrones styles. So I made an Orcish warband which had a leader, a war chief, who was sick, and a child. The players, they would try and groom the child, get rid of the leader, and take over the warband. After 5 sessions, my game ended. My players didn't have fun because I didn't have fun. So it ended with one player killing the other player, and then that player was banished from the warband, and the game ended. So if you invite a group of players over to play Monopoly, and someone asks if you should play Ludo, you ask that player to leave your table. I have been a GM for over 15 years. It took me more than 10 years to find out what kind of game I wanted to play. Then I spent about 3 years just going through players, because the players I found didn't like the way I wanted to play the game. I've had more than 25 players in 3 years. I finally found a group who wanted to play Dungeons and Dragons the way I wanted to play Dungeons and Dragons. But remember, it took me over 13 years in total before I found my group. So you gotta ask yourself, what kind of game do you want to play? When you know what kind of game you want to play, then ask yourself, how big of a compromise am I willing to go on? Because you will have to make compromises. The fewer the compromises, the harder time you'll have finding a group. But when you do find it, it's worth the wait. At least it was for me. If you could give one GM tip to a new game master, what would that tip be? Let me know down in the comments below. That was everything for this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Happy gaming.